Hey everybody, it's Matt Michaels here on the DeFalco Files with the owner and creator of FSW, the Future Stars of Wrestling here in Las Vegas, Mr. Joe DeFalco. And Joe, how are you doing going into the show coming up on August 6th?
Well, it's the final preparation for survival of the fittest. We really got to pick up the promotion on that. The only match we're able to announce so far, which is a big one, Jay Vidal putting his FSW career on the line against the No Limits champion, the new one. Once again, first time ever, the title has been exchanged 3 times in a row.
Yeah.
So, will the fourth time, be the charm for Jay Vidal? Because if it isn't, Jay Vidal won't be at FSW.
What does that do for you in terms of making you look at the future with having possibly no Jay Vidal on your roster, who's arguably one of the most popular wrestlers that not only you have now, but you've ever had.
Yeah, I think the last couple of months, Jay Vidal doesn't feel as loved as he did before. And it's, I've tried to explain it to guys that, if Gregory Sharp can get cheered because he won a title because he hadn't won one. It's a big moment. People have seen him, whether they don't like him or not, they respect him. And Matt Vandergrift's a guy who's really well liked. So of course, a large, there's a lot of people who love Jay Vidal, but they also love Matt Vandergrift. So they're kind of torn. Not everybody's like Brandy, who's ready to never come to a wrestling show again if Jay Vidal loses. You know what I'm saying?
Oh.
I'm almost rooting for Jay Vidal because she's going to cost me a lot of money over the year.
Well, you know what you can do is, if that's the case, just tab it up and send the check to Jay, and he can pick up the tickets for her for the next year.
If we can get her to get that season pass, then it wouldn't. I wasn't thinking ahead.
Yeah. uh, what matches so far for August 6th have been announced?
We've announced the two tag team champions will be in action in singles matches. The big one, Hero Lou against Ice Williams. Let's see how Ice Williams bounces back after, a defeat, but a defeat that really earned him a lot of respect in the wrestling world, going toe to toe with Hammerstone. Well, now he gets Hero Lou, and then Shogun is going to take on Watson. Obviously these guys have been enthralled and engaged in situations over the last few months, and it's easy to see at Survival of the Fittest there be some combination of match between TBD and Hammerstone and the faction and things like that. Then we got a 6-man tag, which is, the guys that are, bragging about everything they've done in Arizona. Jesus Christ, I read Facebook and, Danny's calling me out.
Yeah.
I got a little confused because one said that I said they were the 7th best tag team, which I don't believe I said 7th. And then the other one said, when we were talking about, I guess, them and Doomfly, I said they'd be the 5th team that would get that opportunity. Now, I don't
Right.
know if it was 5 and maybe I said it. I say a lot of things, I just know, TBD and Death Proof would definitely, and even a Sky High, but I don't know if there'd be another team, So, hey, Danny, you moved up. Now you're 4th. So, you know, they'll be teaming up with Brett the Threat against, their big nemesis, Sky High, who a lot of people compare the Suavacitos and Sky High. Obviously, Sky High has got a little more experience than the Suavacitos. And, a lot of times people say things to pump themselves up, whatever it is, that chip on their shoulder, with Danny, the Napoleon complex, that they're always out to prove. hey, Joe, we're Chavo Guerrero's favorite tag team. Okay, then, tell Chavo to start a company and, you could be his champion. It's like nobody's ever discounted what they are, but they're young, they're inexperienced. They've had some really good matches and they've had some really shitty matches. Just, I find it funny because every time Danny talks, he's like, oh, we had a banger. Oh, it was the banger. It was the match of the night. No offense, but every match isn't the match of the night. So, you're being a little ridiculous. But if that's what motivates you, it happened in the past. When Clutch and Sugar Brown had the chip on their shoulder back from China, they wanted to prove to Joe DeFalco that they were deserving. Sure. And they were better than the 1%. And what about us? And same thing with Remy Marcel. All these guys, no matter, those guys were champions before, but they felt that they were slighted. Gregory Sharp felt slighted, and if I can be the motivating factor to get them to another level, it's funny that, people that have made it, when I talk with Tom Howard, he's nothing but, man, thanks for everything. You really helped us out a lot, and we consider you a major reason for the success of Lacey Ryan, Zoe Stark. I always get a message here and there from Cepha, showing his appreciation. Well, it seems like Chris Bay, Cross, Hammerstone, guys who've made it to the pinnacle seem to be appreciative and see what I did to help them. And the guys who are struggling and hoping to get to that next level, if that's their motivation to get there and they get there, well, just remember the guy who helped push you there.
Right. No, that's a very fair point. However, one of the things that Brett the Threat posted this week on Facebook was a picture of Don Vitale in a Brett the Threat shirt. Are we going to see Joe DeFalco match that and wear a Brett the Threat shirt?
If he gives me a shirt and I decide to wear it that day, I'm willing to take shirts. It was my birthday last week, and who drops by for probably the third year in a row? We were doing the podcast last week, and he was trying to come by, and I'm like, dude, I'm not going to be there. I'm doing the podcast. Well, I'll be there after. And Ice Williams comes in with three shirts, a faction shirt, an Ice Williams shirt, and actually I forgot I was going to wear it today. I was going to wear the Ice Williams shirt in celebration of him providing me gifts. Here's another guy. He may not have been successful in capturing the heavyweight championship, but he knows that Joe DeFalco has tried to do his best, as I try to do with all my people, and, try to push them to that next level and give them opportunities. And now it's up to you, the wrestler, to take advantage of the opportunities. Danny made this, comment, and it's like, oh, who's got more clout than us? And it was like, yeah, maybe the team that beat you last month. Oh, you mean the ones that only wrestle in one city? And it's like, what is the point of that? Even if they did only wrestle in one city, the point is they beat you. And if I'm not mistaken, their first trip to California, the East Bay Pro Wrestling, they won the tag titles there. So you've already been proven wrong that they don't wrestle in only one city, because up in, Midwestern California, in the middle ground, they're tag team champions. It's like the only belts I see the Suavacito with are the ones they stole from attacking Sky High. So they don't even have any championships as great as they are. So, go win something. They won the Young Lions Cup or whatever in Mexico. The rumor was, I heard it was the 15 and under class. They just thought that those guys were only like 14 years old. But I could be wrong. I got that information from Evan Daniels, so I don't know.
Oh man. Well, you know what? I think the Suavecitos, you guys have a big your shoes are size 17 now. So you got to fill them shoes up, man, and show what you can do on August 6th. You know, it's going to be Brett the Threat teaming with the Suavecitos, and Sky High is going to be teaming with who?
The young prodigy, Bodie.
There we go.
You know, Brett the Threat arguably has come off, the two biggest wins of his career against Cal Jack and Sin Bodie. He has been on a roll lately. He's one of him and the Suavecitos are a perfect match. They're the most arrogant guys I've ever met, And the funny thing is, getting back to the Suavecitos, that they talked exactly the same when they were 0-11. So it goes in one ear out the other because that's their attitude. And more Danny again because he speaks a lot more than Ricky. You know what I mean?
Right.
And again, they're both extremely talented. In 2 years, it's going to be very interesting to see where they're at in the landscape of professional wrestling. Right now they're in the growing period. They're in the growth period where generally you tell people to shut the fuck up, keep your ears open and your mouth closed. But these new breed of wrestlers that are coming along, thanks to that social media and their 47 followers egging them on to talk shit, they feel that's what's necessary. And in some cases, who's to argue? If Brett the Threat's getting booked in 10 different places, I doubt he's getting booked because they never saw any social media presence or any promos or anything he did. Right. He got himself, known in different parts of the state. Nobody came up to me and say, hey, Mr. DeFalco, there's a guy who sent a resume, Brett the Threat, and, we wanted your opinion. No, people go on their own. So they're either getting recommendations from somebody, nobody's magically sending a video of their work. And it's like, oh my God, I got to have this guy. You know what I mean? And, in his defense, he's gotten on Booker T's radar. He's gotten on those shows. You know what I mean? So, I'd be dumb to sit here and say, oh yeah, these guys suck, because they don't. They just do things that really irk the boss. Go work Dom's show once every month or two.
Well, and that's interesting because they're going against three guys who would, I guess, be the exact opposite. Guys who go by the book, who keep their mouths kind of closed and listen and learn and try to make a name for themselves. But by, like you said, by going out and winning a tag title, or, Bodie at his age, going out and getting opportunities and, is not pushing himself as the future is now type of character. Is that an interesting balance that you have to deal with nowadays? In the past, before social media, it was always in-house stuff. So the egos and the trying to get ahead and et cetera was all usually contained. But now it's out there for everyone to see. So is that something you have to balance and not only give opportunities to the guys who are doing everything, by the book per se, but also having to balance that with the guys who are using social media? And don't get me wrong, both sides have talent. That's the whole thing. They have talent. If they didn't, we wouldn't be having a conversation. So is that something that's, kind of new to you in terms of having to have that balance?
Well, the thing that's mainly different is, when you wrestle a show in Vegas, people in Vegas know what's going on. When you wrestle that show in Arizona, the people in Arizona, most recently, the Suavacitos and Brett the Threat wrestled in Arizona.
Right.
And they've wrestled there a few times, and they've wrestled at Best of the West. And generally, our fans don't really know the results of things that happen in different companies in different states.
Right.
But, the Brett the Threats of the world and those guys, they make it a point. Hey, we beat them in their hometown. We beat them in our hometown. We beat them here. We wrestled them there. And now, even though they're not feuding here, the Suavacitos and Sky High have wrestled numerous times all over the West Coast. And now it's coming back here. It's home turf, and people only heard what happened in those matches. Right. And that came from one side. So it's like, well, now they get to witness it, live. And it is definitely different because, sometimes you could say things about a person and it's like, well, they've had no success. But now they pull it up and say, see, this is what I did in Phoenix last week, right. Or, Brett the Threat, trying to lay out a Remy Marcel, for example. You know what I mean? So Our fans now, even more so today than 5 years ago, or 6 years ago, a guy like Cross would come on and get noticed by the world by doing promos.
Yeah.
And nowadays, the new thing is talking about, matches and things you've had in different states that makes our fans more aware of your career because they're more interactive with the fans. They're more active on social media when they go out and do stuff, which again, it's almost that snowball effect of, oh, well, I got booked here and was successful, and now I'm getting booked over there, and then all of a sudden you see guys getting booked in Washington, which has become a pretty hotbed for independent wrestling. And, maybe they go to Utah, maybe they go to New Mexico, and maybe they go to Texas and wrestle for Booker T, all of it, because in this business, it's all about making a name for yourself and making as many connections as possible. As I've always said, there's thousands of guys who are good wrestlers, but the only ones who get to that next level had the right connections to help them get to that next level. I've seen some guys that are fantastic that have never really gotten the opportunity because they never wrestled in a company to where those guys had access to getting them, looked at. This day, if you do your homework, you can at least get on people's radars, sending stuff to, especially like AEW and Impact and New Japan in the United States. Take a look at the guys, who are now in Japan, Tito and Royce, they're in Japan now because of the success they had in New Japan's trek to the United States and having the dojo. And I know guys like Sharp and Jacob Austin Young, they've all been, they've trained at the dojo. Ryan Taylor, who gets used a lot now, Bateman, Danny Limelight, Adrian Quest. I kind of hate New Japan. They've driven the rates up of the guys that I would use from Cali to drive in. I'll tell you that right now. Trying to get some people. And
let me ask you about that because just announced, I think within the last 2 days or so, Carl Fredericks is no longer under contract to them. Is that someone who could find his way to Vegas?
It always is. I've had some preliminary talks, but, everybody's on the table, whether they're with New Japan or not. In the past, the issue was with Carl was dealing with the office of New Japan.
Right.
And they had a lot of restrictions, especially since he was a dojo guy, and what he was and wasn't allowed to do. While guys like, Tito and Royce and Limelight and Bateman, they're just kind of outsiders, I guess you could say. It's the same thing because I saw Clark Connors wrestling for Dom in Phoenix, and I was like, hey, maybe they changed their policy. And it was like, no, we still had to pay a lot. We got a little bit of a deal because he trains with us. So I guess he moved to Phoenix. So they got some kind of deal that they work out. It just is kind of difficult because all these bigger companies are trying to become more and more possessive of the talent and what they do. And okay, well, this guy can't lose to that guy, and this company can't lose to that company because we're bigger than them, and it makes us look bad. So I don't think the politics has ever been as bad because when you were signed to a major company in the past, you couldn't work anywhere. It didn't matter. Right. It's only with, Ring of Honor, AEW, Impact. Like with Impact, most of those guys have the freedom to work elsewhere through their contracts. I can just deal with a Chris Bay by himself. I can deal with the Trey Miguel. But when Willie Mack was there, I had to go through the office because that's how his contract was structured.
Yeah.
So you had to book him through there. So now their rate's going to be higher because Impact's getting their money back. Right. You know what I mean? Where Willie might do it for this because he lives in Vegas, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I'd work for that. He can't make that decision on his own. Thankfully, a guy like D'Lo's in the office. So it becomes like, hey, this is what we're generally asking. What do you think you can do? And then he can present it. And in most cases, as you've seen, we've had Willie on the shows. So, they gave us Willie for a rate that we were comfortable with.
Right. When you are looking at the road to setting up survival of the fittest, has there been anything that you thought you were going to potentially book for the show that just wasn't going to work out? And is there anything that you see yourself working on right now that could be something fairly big that the fans might not even expect?
Yeah, actually, I talked to a good friend of ours who's worked for us on a few occasions. Super cool dude, and he was in town. So I hit him up like, hey, bro, you in town? Blah, blah, blah. He was hanging out with a friend of his. And I had heard rumors, but it turns out it's true. The friend lives in town. And he's a former, WWE superstar, still, in fantastic shape. And, I'm trying to see if we can make things happen. And then the guy that I'm talking to was like, yeah, bro, I might be moving to Vegas soon. So it's like, dude, let me in on that one because, he's a guy we've been wanting to use. Another guy, Impact, WWE, NWA. He's world renowned. He's feuded with some of the biggest names in the history of professional wrestling. So, anytime you can add that, sometimes in those situations, especially if it's a guy you're going to use more than once because they live here, man, if you could get that surprise the first time out, all of a sudden, boom, the entrance music hits and you're like, holy shit, what the fuck? That's what I live for. You know what I mean? It's like in a lot of situations, it's hard to do, We did it in the past one time when we had Lance Hoyt as the hand-picked guy for Paulie Cover to wrestle Cross. The problem was Lance Hoyt was a big name in New Japan, but he wasn't a big name in, the United States. But this guy's a big fucking monster, 6'8". And as I've told the Lance Hoyt story over the years, Shelton Benjamin brought him into the IWF, and we were kind of like, Lance Hoyt. All I think of is the air guitar playing idiot from, the Rock and Rave Connection, which I was never a fan of. Like, here's this big dude who was presented as kind of a goof. But he was in the early runs with Davey Boy Smith in New Japan. Yeah. And so it was like, what? It was a little kind of interesting. And it was like, hey, he'll fly himself in. This is the rate. And we're like, hey, that's cool. And I was going to have him work Brian Cage because when they were in developmental, down, I believe, in Georgia back then, when it was when their developmental was down there. That was the match I was pitching for, you know. And Shelton's like, no, 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 because Shelton Benjamin was on the creative crew with me and Johnny the Bull at the time. And it was like, no, we need to do Lance Hoyt and Matt Hardy. And it's like, oh my God, we got to put Matt Hardy in with this goof. Ba 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 ba. Match start. I have to give up some authority to get some things that I want. So we're like, okay, I'm not going to argue that point. And you know, they had a banger, you know, and the top rope snapped as Lance Hoyt went over there. We thought he was going to kill himself. He ended up being fine. And right after the show, I'm like, hey, bro, man, if you ever want to come to Vegas, I'd love to have you. And it was like, here was a guy who totally changed my mind. I met him. And as I said, he's not one of the nicest wrestlers I met. He's one of the nicest people I have ever met. So, you know, thanks, Shelton. You got one right. You know, and Lance is that guy. You know, I hit him up AEW weekend thinking he might be in town. But again, AEW didn't even use him. It was like they gave him the quick push. And now he's just kind of another random guy that unfortunately, you know, up and down, depending on where they're going with him. But, you know, we did that, and it was great having Cross and Lance Hoyt, and it was great for Cross. But I just remember, because it was so quiet, I heard a couple of fans in the front row, and the guy was like, holy shit, that's Lance Hoyt. And, like, you know, he was the only one, you know.
Well, you know, at that time, Lance Hoyt had the one big fan who would follow him around, right?
Yes.
You know, speaking of shows and big productions, SummerSlam, what did you think?
Hey, before we get to that, you were talking about changes and the things in the show.
Yeah.
Well, on August 21st in Survival of the Fittest, we planned on crowning a new women's champion. And obviously the top contender for that is Viva Van. And Viva made me aware that even though she was booked for that, she had a major booking step in that date. And since she is available August 6th, we are going to crown a new women's champion on Saturday. And what we're going to do is, because there hasn't been a lot of women going through the circuit, you know, the Rochelle Riveter did really well against Viva, had a great match. Yeah. But to just follow it up with that match, that's not how it's going to happen. So what we're going to do is Viva is going to be one of the participants in the finals for the winner wins the women's championship. What we're going to do is, earlier in the night, we are going to have a fatal four-way. And the winner of the fatal four-way will now wrestle Viva Van for the women's championship. You know, right now we got Rochelle Riveter, who proved herself a couple weeks ago. We got Alice Blair. We got Lilith Grimm out of Colorado. And we're working on a fourth member. You know, I've reached out, you know, to Christina Von Eerie. I've reached out to Delilah Doom, a couple others who were unavailable. So we're hoping to add a fourth participant. And then the winner, as a preview to Survival of the Fittest, you know, the winner has to go to then wrestle Viva Van, who has been, you know, the hottest women's wrestler in the business, capturing belts everywhere she goes. You know, she's come back to FSW and she's been on a roll, you know, for 4 to 6 months, defeating every challenger in her way. So I guess she got tired of just wrestling matches with no meaning, and she wants a title match, and we believe the time is right. So it is going to happen August 6th. A new women's champion will be crowned.
Yeah, that is exciting because, you know, the thing is that you've said it before. It's tough because there's not a concentrated, group of women in Las Vegas. So it means that there's a lot of people coming in and trying to find that rhythm, trying to find storylines when that type of, booking has to happen, is tough. But also the women's title, has become something that has a nice lineage in FSW and really does mean something. So it's good to see that you're able to start getting the title back into the mix, and hopefully that will draw, a few more wrestlers this way, and maybe, you know, the, like you said, there's people moving here all the time, and we've seen it. It's a lot of guys moving here. At some point, maybe the women start moving here to, you know, to solidify an FSW women's division and get a little notoriety.
Well, Rochelle Riveter moved here from Colorado. Another female that we've used in the past, Gypsy Mac, who I've talked to, she's actually going to move here and start training with us. She said hopefully by October, and TJP's girl recently had a baby, Aria Blake, and she's inquired about possibly doing some stuff here. So, mixed in with the out-of-state talent, the Viva Vans, the Milos, Johnny Robbie, who's been brought to my attention. There's definitely some girls, and especially if it continues or not with the United Women's Wrestling. I believe that's what it's called. Is that what it's called? The one at the Sahara?
The UWW.
Yeah, United Women's Wrestling, I think.
Yeah.
Right, and we got Jenny Santana, Tito Santana's daughter, training with us. The other day, it was crazy. We had a class, and I was like, wow, we actually had 6 women, training in the class. So there's definitely some new talent aboard. There's a couple of our younger talent that is progressing pretty quickly. So we're definitely looking forward to, there's nothing worse than having a top 10 list that only 5 people could be on. You know what I mean? It makes it difficult, and it's tough. But we're going to try our best. We've been talking with former women's champion, Maserati, and she's been banged up a lot, and kind of took a break. I just saw she got to wrestle in Trinidad and Tobago last weekend. So definitely she is somebody we'd love to have in the mix. I did talk to her about Saturday, and she got a little offended that she would be put into a 4-way to have to win to wrestle Viva Van. So, but talks continue. Maserati's felt that she has, proven herself, and she should not be in a contenders match. So, where that lies, she is an original. She trained with us. We want to accommodate her, but, she's also not been around for a long time. So, so it's kind of like a touchy situation. She feels she deserves to be the queen, and, she should be the one in the position that somebody has to beat to get to wrestle her. So,
right. Well, and it's kind of, it's justified. She really has put in the work, and she is one hell of a tough woman.
She's come a long way. When she was just the valet who was hated, now she's the wrestler who's hated. So
Well, you know what, and it's remarkable too, because with her, I think one of her biggest assets is the fact that her voice, when she gets really angry, is just so unique. You don't hear it from other wrestlers because it's unique to her, and that is just so fun to watch the crowd just give it to her when she's complaining about something. It's just so fun to see her, and to have her around would be great. And she has been banged up, so that's nice that she's gotten that chance to kind of rest herself a little bit and it's going to be interesting to see where this goes with the women's championship. And of course, like you said, collecting belts, and that FSW title could fit somewhere in the luggage, I'm sure. So we'll see what happens with that. Any other matches right now on August 6th?
Well, Nick Xander is going to wrestle a hand-picked opponent of Clutch, because Nick Xander wants another match with Clutch. And Clutch stated, well, I really proved my point by beating your ass after the match. Nobody remembers the fact that Nick Xander won it with a flash pin. All they remember is the beatdown that Nick Xander received. Well, right. Nick Xander came out, he opened the show, and he wants Clutch. And Clutch said, well, this is how it's going to work. I don't really need to do it, but hey, I'm a fair guy. So he's told him that if Nick Xander wants a match at Survival of the Fittest, Clutch will give him a match as long as he beats whoever he puts in front of him on August 6th. So it'll be extremely interesting to see who Nick Xander is going to have to wrestle. So, there's a lot of, ideas and thoughts and options, I would guess. Is Clutch going to look at the past history of Nick Xander? Clutch has also stated on many occasions that, in his day and when he trained, it was a lot harder to break in than it is now. Will Clutch find a name from the past and, put him in front of Nick Xander? No idea. Clutch is kind of an enigma. I've known Clutch since he was a guy who wrestled some shows in Arizona and decided to move all the way to Vegas and take a shot at training at FSW. He knew people here. He, respected everything we were doing. Here's a guy we've had many ups and downs with. The respect is on, both sides. You can walk by the office one day and you can hear arguing. If you don't hear the other person, well, you might think it's Cody, you might think it's Remy, but you also might think it's Clutch. So, he is keeping it close to the vest. I know of a few people he's talked to, but, I have no idea, exactly who's going to be there. Gregory Sharp will be on hand, the Nevada state champion. We also have Damian Drake's going to be on hand, Jordan Oasis, who had a new attitude, I guess you can say. The MK Army's Kevin Koa will be on hand along with MK. And he will be going one-on-one with a man he demolished. That wasn't part of the match. It was making a statement. Young Jeffrey Excellence is going to get an opportunity to exact revenge from the beatdown that he received at the hands of the MK Army. So, we definitely got some good things happening. So, get your tickets, fswvegas.com. Of course, you can go to you can go to the door and buy the tickets there. As I made the post on the flyer, just come on down. Maybe we could see if Sky High and Bodie could shut up the Suavacitos. I think that's going to be the moniker for the show.
So I was going to ask you, SummerSlam, what were your opinions?
I didn't watch every match, but I watched, a decent amount. I always know when you have the, you win Money in the Bank. But, I thought Theory had absolutely no help from Creative whatsoever. He got, I did not expect him to cash in. Absolutely not. I knew that wasn't going to happen. Okay. Right. But when you have Lashley smash him, it should at least give him some hope in the other match, because usually you don't want to kill a guy 2 different times. Right. But he got smashed 2 different times. And I looked at that as, wow, it's going to be a while before. And I like Theory a lot, and I think it would be cool. That was not the place for him to cash in.
Right.
And whether he's one of those guys who cashes in or not, I still think he is a guy who has a huge future world champion.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to take time because right now he's being booked more as a cowardly guy.
Sure.
And it's like, look at Theory. He's a big enough dude. He looks like a badass. He's in great shape. He can talk. And it's like, I guess that's how they want to position him. I don't know. Couple other matches I saw. One match I didn't see that I was disappointed in was the Usos match with the Street Profits.
Yeah.
To go after everything they did at the last show to come back and just have them lose again, I'm not understanding the purpose that it served. Like, okay, are you going to break them up? Is that the plan? Well, maybe you should have jump started it then, so at least it wouldn't have been just so. Oh, okay, the Usos won. Let's move on to the next day, and that's how it becomes.
Right.
I watched Bianca Belair, and I saw the end part with Bayley and them coming back. Cool. You got a new faction. And obviously Triple H showed a little there by bringing back somebody who had been released already. Hopefully another person who's been released won't re-sign till October 23rd, the day after our Mecca. You know what I mean? But, we will see, what's going on in there. And, the main event, I love the spot with the tractor, and it wasn't the spot that I love with the tractor so much. It was the fact that when he lifted it, Roman Reigns was in one corner, and the way he bounced and sold that, man, that was fantastic. Never seen that before. It was fun. It's like, how crazy is it that Brock Lesnar now is the fun guy?
Right. And it's fucking fabulous to watch.
It went. Joey was at his buddy Mars's house and they were watching the show, and I came back. So I'd left after a couple, one of the matches, and I came back and it was 8:09, and I was like, let me hit Peacock. Maybe the main event's still on. It was literally 8:34 when I looked at my clock again, and the match was still going. It was like the longest Brock Lesnar match in the history of Brock Lesnar. I was like, that match had to go 30, 35 minutes. The only thing I may have done differently was he got laid out, he got up. He got laid out, he got up. They did that 4 or 5 times. I think the 5th time he got laid out, instead of just laying him out the 6th time and pin him, maybe he makes that small comeback, kind of like the Money in the Bank thing. Usually, the guy comes in, he attacks the guy, and a lot of times it goes to a finish within 30 seconds. Not very fun. But the fun part is the guy makes a little bit of a comeback and then gets smashed down again. It was like if Lesnar could have had just one more little comeback and then get sent packing, But other than that, it was a great main event, probably one of the best main events in a while, because of the fact that as good as Brock Lesnar putting over Drew McIntyre is, the match didn't last 6 minutes.
Yeah.
So, you're just getting into it, and it's like, oh, it's UFC style. Anything can happen at any time. Well, no, it's Brock Lesnar style, and you guys generally, the last match with Reigns, I think, went 8 minutes, and was like, oh, that was a long match. So, but, the question becomes, where does Brock Lesnar go now? I saw some people felt, he did the hat thing. He's retiring, going out in the sunset. But then I guess he was booked for the day one pay-per-view. And it's like, is Brock Lesnar just going to come in and beat random guys? Like, I'm not sure there's much of a sell in that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where they go with that. And my favorite part of that ring So, like you said, Roman sold that. Just it was brilliant. It was wonderful. But the funniest part about it is Brock Lesnar's vest and hat stayed put. It didn't move at all. So it took Roman out, but a hat and a vest, nah.
And they couldn't do that spot the other way because I don't think Roman Reigns would have any clue how to use a tractor. So the fact of the matter is, we all know Brock is the farmer guy, so he was big. There was no hesitation. It wasn't like those spots where you see and time just drains away, the hourglass is going, and somebody's got to sit there and lay and lay. Brock was quick to it. The other match that I watched in its entirety was Logan Paul and The Miz. And, I really think, and I hear the facts that Logan Paul wanted to be a baby face and all this other stuff. But I think him and Miz could have had a nice, fun run as tag team champions in that situation. They work well together, and Logan Paul did really well. I heard McAfee's match had a few hiccups, but Happy Corbin's kind of really at a low spot in his career. And he's had numerous low spots, but for some reason he keeps getting that little bump. And I'm not sure what that match accomplished, to have on that show. That was easily a SmackDown match.
Yeah, and I think that Pat McAfee is essentially, he was on that show because I think they consider him as a wrestler an attraction right now. But it looks like the big buildup eventually will be for McAfee versus Corey Graves, which would be wonderful because I don't think we've ever seen a commentator versus commentator, brand versus brand match in the WWE.
Yeah, I guess that would be interesting. I heard recently Corey Graves got basically cleared to train again. But wasn't the issue with Corey Graves was he really wasn't good enough. So I guess he isn't good enough as a wrestler, but as a wrestler who's a commentator, now he becomes good enough. You know what I mean? It's like, he plays the heel. I'm not the biggest fan of Corey Graves, so I hope McAfee smashes him. I like McAfee. He's funny.
Yeah.
He's very engaging.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And he's naturally athletic, so he puts everything together. I think that's the same thing with Logan Paul that we're seeing too, is if you're naturally athletic, you get a bigger chance of making that translate into the ring, and then if you're working a guy like Miz, it just makes it that much better because Logan Paul is still stiff and really, grab a leg type of stiff where the leg is still stiff, not loose. So he's got stuff to learn, and the Miz was selling everything wonderfully, and it looked great. Amongst some other things going down for former FSW people, the MMM got Max Dupree back, where everyone thought that he was fired just 2 weeks ago. Apparently, Hunter, being creative, said, "Nah, yeah, you're good. You're staying." That was fun to see.
Well, it would have been more fun to see them leave him out of that and put him actually in a situation where, he can excel. I don't see the upside in any way whatsoever. Go on YouTube and check out the Rickerisms, that little, little snippets that I had Sean do back in like 2010, 2011. Yeah. And he ad libs, funniest dude, serious he can be, and I just think he has far more to offer than what they're positioning him in. I'll say it again. Are those guys going to win the tag team titles? Are they ever going to wrestle? Is it only going to be runway models showing off different swim gear? At least if it was like, hey, here's swim gear by Snickers, who's a sponsor, I'm really not sure,
So did you
where they're
have
going with it. And unless Maxime Dupree that's what it should have been. They fired Max Dupree and brought in Maxime Dupree, and it was actually Ricker as Maxime Dupree.
Yeah,
Now
totally,
that would have been a pop.
I totally agree with that. Did you see, because you said you didn't see some of SummerSlam, did you see, speaking of the sponsorship, so Pure Water was the sponsor, and they did one of the most unbelievably funny commercials with MMM and Mace and Mansoor doing just pouring that water all over themselves and each other, and it was just phenomenally done. It looks like that's the kind of stuff they are going to be doing, is putting brand stuff when they have it with with that agency, which is not a bad way to go. And I think it's going to be one of those things where, like Fandango, teaming up with Tyler Breeze, where you didn't see it coming, that team made something of the garbage they were given, and it looks like that they're on their way to doing this with MMM. But on the other hand, you have Cepha doing some great things in NXT with Von Wagner, and it looks like Lacey. It looks like Zoe Stark is
the next NXT Women's Champion.
Yeah, knock on wood. She's looking ready, man.
I'm looking for the sports book that bet online. I'm waiting for the line to go up. I'm hammering it on Zoe Stark.
And if she does lose and you lose your shirt, then Tom Howard is going to get a different text from you.
Let's just say I know things.
That's I'm
going to give out the Joe DeFalco. It's been a long time. The Joe DeFalco mortgage closer. 1-800-JOE wins. I'm giving it to you absolutely free of charge. Load up. Next NXT Women's Champion, Zoe Stark. Bet it before the line goes up.
Well, we'll see what happens. We'll maybe put down a little bet on behalf of the show and see if we can, turn some cash into some gold, as hopefully Zoe will be doing soon. As we wrap up here, one of the big things in baseball that happened yesterday was not the Juan DeSoto trade, but the fact that the Mets gained a starting pitcher in Jacob deGrom. Wow, man. He looked
What a
good.
trade. A trade they got him for.
What was that?
I said it was a great trade. They got him for nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Bringing him, in right at that moment, because he was ready. How do you think that impacts the chance of the Mets now? Because it looks like you're going to have the Dodgers, you're going to have the Mets, you're going to have Milwaukee, and then possibly in the wild card
Milwaukee's got no shot. San Diego's the team to watch out for.
I was just going to say, San Diego and the Cardinals are going to be kind of the wild card, and the Braves. So you're looking at those six teams kind of, swimming in the water.
I remember years ago they had a Subway Series with the Mets and Yankees. It was a big deal. But the problem was the Mets weren't very good that year. They were a mediocre team who just got hot, and then the Yankees smashed them. Right now, if I'm the Yankees, Mr. Judge, how much money do you want? And just give it to him.
Yeah.
Dude's got 44 homers. Like, I don't know how anybody pitches to him. It's like he's Barry Bonds in his prime.
Yeah.
And how you can let Aaron Judge hit a walk-off homer to beat you. I remember with Barry Bonds, the bases would be loaded. and they would walk him anyway.
Yeah. Rather give up the one run instead of the potential grand slam. Or in Barry's case too, it's funny because this isn't as prevalent in baseball nowadays because of how everything's done. But a hitter like Bonds, you saw the long ball abilities, but he was still a guy who could easily find the gap, hit a double, and drive in 3 runs on a double. He didn't have to hit it over the wall. And I think that a guy like Judge is on the verge of becoming that kind of player, where, you're right. The Yankees have no excuse of not keeping him because they are the biggest market team. Why would you not sign that guy to a contract that he deserves? And these contracts are ridiculous, but the owners know this, so dish out the money, take the luxury tax if you have to.
It's like, hey, this is what we offered Soto. This is what we're paying this guy. We'll give you another $5 million a year. Who cares? It's the Yankees. 10 years for an extra $50 million. He's going to get it anyway. You're paying Stanton like $30 million. So why shouldn't you pay your homegrown talent who has gotten better every year? Him and Gary Sanchez, when they came up, they were the two monsters. And now Gary Sanchez has been on 3 other teams, and he's horrible. And he never adjusted. That's the big deal. Everybody can come out and they can get hot and they can hit a bunch of homers. But then when everybody has seen you, they adjust, and now you have to adjust. And it's obvious Aaron Judge, who was a 260 hitter, has adjusted because now he's a 300 hitter.
Yeah.
Who has all the homers in the world. And he's batting second. So, he's getting less opportunities to drive in runs because he's batting second. Where if he was batting third or fourth, there's a good chance that the guys in front of him get on, and now he's hitting 3-run homers or 2-run singles and things like that. As for the Mets are one of the best teams in baseball. But playoff time, they're going to need the right pitchers. Yeah. And having Scherzer as the number 1 and having DeGrom as the 1A, I'll tell you what, I was off on that, man. I thought Syndergaard was the best pitcher of that group. And he probably was until he got hurt, because now he's a bum. And again, is he a bum? Well, no, he's not a bum. The guy had arm problems, and I've seen it. The best pitchers now, they got to adjust themselves. And the guy who throws 98's throwing 92. Now you can hit that guy. So, but having DeGrom for the playoffs, and again, that's great. DeGrom's back. Well, how long is he going to last? Every year we've seen issues with him with his arm that, he never lasts the season anyway. Yeah. So, they got, the Bassett dude who seems pretty good, but they're not going to win the World Series with Bassett as their number 2 pitcher against the Dodgers. To me, that if the Mets are going to go to the World Series, they got to get through the Dodgers. The Dodgers have proven themselves. The trade deadline was yesterday. They'll still pick up somebody good, before the waiver deadline at the end of this coming month. Right. And, everybody talks about the Astros. I believe the Yankees are a better team.
Yeah, it's going to be it's more of an exciting atmosphere, I think, this year because of the fact that you have a clear line on some of these dominant teams. And it's going to be interesting to see if any of those wild card teams, pull off that upset, that major upset, or if a team like, let's say, the Twins win the division and end up playing the Yankees. Can the Twins finally beat the Yankees in the playoffs?
Nope. No shot. The Twins are that small market team that overexcels, but they never have enough to win the World Series. And, again, it's about getting hot, but Sonny Gray is one of your best pitchers, so that already answers it. Sonny Gray is the pitching equivalent of Joey Gallo in New York.
Well, Joey Gallo is now an LA Dodger, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, now they'll put him in against right-handers and pinch hit, and he'll do well. And that's the thing. It's like they got – why didn't last year when they brought in Gallo just platoon him and Voit? Voit crushed left-handers. Gallo crushed right-handers. Instead, they felt the need to get rid of Luke Voit, who the year before, even though it was the shortened season, led the league in homers.
Yeah.
And the other guy is a career like 190 hitter. So, I could talk baseball all day. The Joe DeFalco Baseball Podcast, yo.
Well, we're going to wrap up here again this Saturday, August 6th, 7 p.m. at the FSW Arena. It's going to be a
history. History will be made.
Yeah, we've had
1, 2, 3, 4. We've had 5 women's champions in our history. So we will now have a 6th, unless Maserati takes the deal.
Well, that's going to be interesting to see. Find out if Maserati shows up, and
maybe we'll see if Taya or Heather Monroe's available too.
You never know. Taya, I think she could easily step on in, and if she comes in, hey, why not bring Johnny with her? So
we could Johnny Mecca, the man who never lost the title.
Right.
Well, Here you go. I got a proposition for you. Taya Valkyrie could be represented by the Vegas Bad Boys as long as you pay her exorbitant salary, appearance fee. But the good news is included with the appearance fee, I'll get her to do your podcast.
Oh man,
that's more than you get from the other place, brother.
Right. Well, we'll have to see what the fee is, and we'll have to see if our investors can come up with the cash. I'm assuming it's about $150, right?
Yeah, something like that. Somewhere between like $100 and $1,200. It's like right in there. It's close.
Oh man. Well, that's going on. Again, if you can't be there, FSW Network, $6.99 a month. You can see the last High Octane that happened a couple weeks ago, and catch this one on Saturday. And then get yourself ready for the 21st and Survival of the Fittest, which is going to happen at the Silver Nugget, and is shaping up to be something as the next few weeks we're going to hear. It's going to be some good wrestling going on that.
Yeah, it'll be at the Hefe Bet Event Center.
And therefore, the Suavacitos, I think they're going to be asking you for free beer, figuring that the Hefe owns it. So,
unfortunately, to order beer at the Hefe Bet Event Center, you have to be high enough to actually order it.
To ride the ride.
So, Danny might have to see if Brett the Thread will do it for him.
So, are you saying that that Danny and Brett kind of together is kind of like Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger and twins? Is that what we're getting at?
Close, yes.
Oh, there you have it, everyone. Thanks for tuning in this week. And until next week, everyone, have a good one.